Thank you very much for coming in this very chilly day. I'm afraid cherry blossoms are going away, but I hope that at least for 1 hour we are going to have hot and warm weather in this room. So today's theme is 3 territorial issues. I would like to start talking about Senkaku, and then Takeshima in the northern territories. Well, first about Senkaku. Last year, it was really a turning point in the Japanese post-war history because of this Senkaku issue. The crisis which we have met is unprecedented. And this year, if we fail to manage this crisis, I really think there's a possibility that literally Japan goes into the bottom of the sea, literally, sort of. But in my view, a crisis is an opportunity. And if we manage well the Senkaku issue, as well as Takeshima issue, and the Northern Territory for about 1 year, I am convinced that by the end of the year, Japan's international standing will be completely different in a positive way. So this year, 2013, is a critical year in that sense for the Japanese foreign policy. Now, Senkaku. After September the 11th last year, when Japanese government bought these islands, in my counting last week, 34 times the Chinese official vessels went into the territorial waters of Senkaku Islands, as you know well. I don't know how you appreciate this situation, but I am really convinced that this cannot be tolerated. Just think otherwise. Japan has 2 other territorial claims to Taiwan, Takeshima vis-à-vis Korea, and Northern Territory vis-à-vis Russia. If in the last 67 years, Japanese maritime safety agencies ships went into the territorial waters of either Takeshima or Northern Territories, what would have happened? I am talking this issue with my Korean friends, with my Russian friends, and the answer is unequivocal. Shoot it. Why is not Japan shooting down Chinese vessels? This is a very serious issue, which are sort of looming around Japan. So the situation, in my view, is very, very critical. I personally argue that what China is doing now is at least close to the violation of the United Nations Charter, Article 2.4. Some international lawyers do not argue in this way, I know. But my gut feeling is very close to this, and at least it is a hegemonic action, which China and Japan both decided to refrain from in our Treaty of Friendship, Peace and Friendship, concluded in 1978. Now, what to do? There are many issues related to Senkaku, but I'm at this point concentrating on one single issue. What is China's behavior and what is Japan's behavior? And what should we do? And from Japan's point of view, there are 2 things which we are bound to do. One is deterrence, and another is a dialogue. Deterrence. I think Prime Minister Abe's policy toward deterrence is very right. And I think what Abe told Obama that we are going to pursue this policy of deterrence in Washington at the end of February was very right. Increase military budget, strengthen maritime surveillance activities, revise the National Defense Program outline, and revise the interpretation of Article 9 to ensure Japan's ability to deploy, use collective security. I think these are all right, and some of these issues have been way too long not to have implemented it 20 years ago. But at the same time, as we all know, if we concentrate only in deterrence, then the tension between the two countries continue to rise. And this is not our intention. So an appropriate policy of dialogue should be combined. So what Abe emphasized in Washington, that our door for dialogue is open towards China, I think this was the right message he sent from Washington. And I'm sure that those who are working for Abe, for instance, Yachi, who was former vice minister for foreign affairs during his first prime ministership, and now as working as a special advisor, or Kanehara, who was Yachi's close associate during Abe's first prime ministership, who is working as assistant deputy cabinet secretary. They are all working quietly, but working towards establishing meeting between Abe and Xi Jinping. It has to be well prepared, but I don't have concrete information, but I am sure that this is exactly what they are aiming at, to arrange a meeting between Abe and Xi Jinping to get into real dialogue. What should Abe say to Xi Jinping when he meets after careful preparation? In my view, there is one thing, one statement which Abe should pronounce. Mr. Xi Jinping, let's talk. And I am prepared to listen to whatever you would like to say on this issue. I am going to give my view, but you give me your view. And by way of saying this, I think this very unfortunate statement, which is now maintained as a government key position, that territorial issue does not exist, at least will quietly go away. My personal view that this statement or this positioning that the territorial issue does not exist, this can be justified in a way to take the strongest legal position in negotiations. But this statement has very dangerous aspect, and I think I have certain authority in explaining this statement, because this statement was pronounced by Gromyko, then Foreign Minister of Russia, from 1978 to 1986 for 8 years. While I was working on Russia in our embassy in Moscow, in 1978, Gromyko began to say that the territorial issues between Japan and Soviet Union does not exist. And therefore, if the Japanese side raises the issue, I'm not coming to Japan. Then Japanese Foreign Ministry responded that, okay, if you don't come, then we don't go. And for 8 years, a dialogue between the Foreign Minister of Japan and Foreign Minister of Russia did not take place in capitals, and it took place only once in September at the fringe of the United Nations. And all other meetings were conducted at vice ministerial level. I have been working in our embassy for the second time during this period, at the time when we began to have a little freer debate or dialogue with the Russian side. And really, the point I told the Russians was that, well, okay, you have certain position on the territory issues. You consider these islands yours. But we have our position. And repeatedly we have said that this is the most important issue which we really have to resolve. And refusing to talk, denying the existence of the issue, is arrogant. And stop doing it. Now, objectively speaking, we are doing the same to the Chinese. And I think this is in a situation where we really might get into war. This is dangerous. There has to be a way of at least changing this. And in a way, changing this done by Shevardnadze in January 1986. When he came to Japan, the first thing he said that, okay, Mr. Japan, we have our position on these islands, but I am prepared to listen. So please tell us anything you like to say. And you know, this was a real fresh breeze into the air. So something like this has to happen between Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Abe. And if we succeeded, and then the next question to be asked is what to do, what to propose. And I think there's, from Japan's point, there's clearly one policy direction which Abe can propose. It's basically to continue what we are doing now, not to land, not to construct, and not to research. These 3 points, 3 no's, have been, I think, one of the important points discussed in August last year, before we took this decision. And this, as you all know, despite everything, this is a policy which Japanese government is pursuing, not a cabinet, Abe cabinet inclusive. So we will, I think it is not that difficult for us to give certain assurance that this policy will continue. But then the key question, how will China respond? And in my view, there is only one policy with which China should respond, not to enter. Not to enter into the territorial waters or territorial space. I have no disagreement, or I mean, it doesn't bother me that China has certain views or position on these islands. If they consider it theirs, fine, it is their view. If they consider that Japan grabbed it at the end of the 19th century, when China was at the weakest and Japan was rising, and therefore it is a very, very delicate, important issue from the point of view of their nationalism. Fine, this is their view. But express these views peacefully, not by force. Entering into the territorial waters where Japan has de facto control, effective control from 1895 onwards. This is not an approach which should continue, which could continue. Now, the key question, would China agree to this position of not entering, and basically going back to the situation where we used to stand in the 1970s, 80s, and even most of the 1990s. This I don't know. This I really don't know. If you follow the official position of Chinese government, as is in the internet, this very key document of what they call Jiaotai white paper, which we can see in the internet of, as of September the 25th, 2012. Then you can see toward the concluding part this sentence, that China maintains its permanent existence in the sea areas of Jiaotai and exercises its jurisdiction. This, in my view, is a key position, and its present sentence exercises its jurisdiction. This means that they are continuing to enter. If this continues, I really don't see a way out. And I really see that if some mishappening happens, kind of clash, this could lead into military conflict. If the worst happens, then what is the next question to be asked? If military conflict happens, the worst thing is that we do not know exactly when and how it will stop. It will be stopped. It could escalate. There's only one factor which really would stop escalation. And this is the position by the United States. Japan alone will not have, my view, Japan alone will not have power to stop this escalation. The United States position will become key. And I think there are three fundamentals, three fundamentals, which on the basis of which a proper implementation of Article 5 of the security agreement will be done. First, that Japan will not provoke China. If the United States perceive that it is Japan which provoked, why should the United States government, why should President Obama direct American boys to die for Japan, for this stupid government which is provoking China and creating this unnecessary war? In that sense, too, this position of continuously maintaining a territorial issue does not exist. I don't think it's a wise policy. But second, if the worst happens, then that we should die first. We should send our troops first, and we'll fight first. This is natural prerequisite. If the Japanese government or Japanese people is not prepared to fight and die, why should the Americans come and help us? But I think there's another third factor. Japan is a worthy of democracy. Japan is a worthy of a country which shares the same value with the United States, worthy of defending it. And here there is a slight question about which today I don't think we have time to discuss, about this image of Abe as a revisionist politician. But I stay away from this subject because then I won't be able to finish my presentation in 40 minutes. So, but provided that these three conditions are met and the worst happens, I am firmly, I have a firm belief that the United States will come in. And so the matter will be settled, but in a most undesirable manner. Fight warfare with China. It's insane. So how can it's this mismanagement and mishandling of the issue which will, but somehow which will force us to go to this situation. But you know, it will. I think it could end in this way. Now, Takeshima. I will not go to the history of this issue, but last year was a real turning point. Because there are, at least among the diplomats, among the at least opinion leaders who know about Korea and who care about Japan-Korea relations, there was reasonable knowledge that Takeshima or Dokdo issue for the Koreans was a vital issue for them. Two reasons. Why? One that Japan nationalized formally Takeshima in 1905, and we annexed Korea in 1910. So for the Koreans, annexation or nationalization of Takeshima was the first step towards Korean annexation. So naturally, I mean, they can't stand it. And secondly, somewhere in the early 1950s, there emerged Korean emotionalism towards Dokdo, that Dokdo is the source of Korean identity. And this emotionalism is really sort of beyond any level. And so in the whole post-war foreign policy, Japan's position, in my view, on Takeshima was very subdued. And I think I'm strictly speaking personally, But I think I have certain authority to say this, because the position taken by the Japanese government on Northern Territory and position taken by the Japanese government on Takeshima, entirely different. Northern Territory, we really wanted to have it back. We really wanted to change the status quo through negotiations. Not in Takeshima's case. It was an issue which existed, but it was an issue with which there was no other option than coexisting with it. Now the situation began to change. I think objectively speaking, from the Korean side, from somewhere in the 1990s, and Koreans became much more assertive on maintaining and improving their ownership of the islands. But still, that subdued situation continued. But last year, when President Lee Myung-bak visited the islands, and when his actions was televised, and we saw it in television, there emerged certain feeling, I think, in Japanese, among the Japanese, that enough is enough. So, I think there's some change of mood in Japan. And that was reflected in the atmospherics in September, October last year. But then what to do? The initial message which Abe sent to Korea was a bit mixed. His first decision not to make the Shimane Prefecture Takeshima Day a national day, I think was very good one, in my view, a very good one, to keep this issue out of emotion. But the fact that he sent his representative to the Shimane Prefecture Day on 22nd of February, personally, I don't think it was a wise action. So, but it was a bit mixed. My recipe are twofold. First, for my government, I strongly would like to recommend not to take sort of actions which would clearly serve provocation for the Chinese feeling. But my recipe toward the Koreans, as I said, changed from August last year. My recipe for the Koreans now is to stop saying that there is no territorial issues on Dokdo. This is, as you know, their official position. There is no territorial issue on this on Dokdo. Therefore, there is nothing to talk about with Japan. I think, Korean government have to understand that this position of territorial issue does not exist. Therefore, I don't speak. Is humiliating for any. I don't think it is wise to take up this issue to ICJ from Japan side, because clearly Koreans will not accept it, and it is very clear that Japan is taking this initiative in order to humiliate the Koreans. Humiliation is not the key policy in handling this issue. So, if Koreans show certain flexibility on this, then I think there are at least two things which can really take place very soon. One is talks. And this, mind you, does not necessarily have to take place among the top governmental level. It can take place in track 2. And in my personal experience in the last 2 years or so, there are already concrete examples, concrete talks where Japanese scholars on Takeshima and Korean scholars have met and at least have talked with reasonably restricted emotions. Not entirely without emotions, but very different atmospheric than some meetings where there's so much of accumulated emotionalism that it was not possible to talk about. Very different from this kind of atmospherics. I have not exactly participated in this meeting, but I have been sort of associated with a meeting which took place in September 2011. And from our side, my most respected professor Ikeuchi, of Nagoya University participated. I'm sure that there is a way of continuing this kind of dialogue. And the second dialogue is to have some kind of dialogue in order to enhance or create confidence-building measures around these islands. Or to put it slightly nicely, try to get some ideas to change these islands from the island of dispute to an island of peace and cooperation. And here, again, there's another example that in June 2009, this is a conference to which I personally participated in Washington, a conference held by SAIS. Korean representative came from Seoul, and not only the Korean Americans in the United States, and not only the Americans, not only Japanese, but they welcomed this kind of idea. It's unbelievable. So if the atmospheric change, I am sure that this kind of things can happen. Why? Basically because Japan really, Japan's basic position is not to grab these islands back, as I said. Japan's basic position in the whole post-war period was somehow to find a way of coexisting with the islands. And if the Koreans really understand it, there should be a way to come up with kind of first modus vivendi, but ultimately a kind of solution. Now I have 10 minutes for Russia. Russian situation very, very, very different from these two situations. But let's remember that in November 2010, President Medvedev visited the Kunashiri Island, which was a shock for many Japanese. And the years, let me be precise, from November 2009 until March 2011, for about a year and a half, political relationship between Japan and Russia was really at the bottom, at the nadir, from November 2009 until March 2011. But then, and Medvedev visit to Kunashiri took place exactly somewhere in the middle of this year and a half. But atmospherics began to change. First, after 2011, Russian reaction to this natural disaster was very sort of forthcoming, very warm. But more important changes began to take place in September 2011, when President Putin, or then Prime Minister Putin, declared his candidacy to run for the presidency, the election of which to take place in March 2012. And the key turning point came in March 2012, when Putin made his, I hope and I'm sure you are well aware to this interview with 8 journalists of the G8 countries. Wakamiya-san from Asahi Shimbun went. And on 1st of March, which is 4 days before the election took place, Putin said that when I become president, I want to do 2 things. One is substantial strengthening of economic relations between Japan and Russia. And 2, finally resolving this territorial issue based on the principle of draw. And he used this judo word, hikiwake, draw. Yeah, draw, yeah, hikiwake. And so Wakamiya, he conducted a very tactful interview, and then toward the end of the interview, he said, for a Japanese, if you mean this draw as 2 islands only, it will not become a draw. Then Putin, he laughed. He laughed and said that, he had a nice smile, and he said that you are not diplomats. I am not an elected president yet. So when I become elected president in 4 days' time, then let us instruct the 2 foreign ministries to start. And he again used this judo word, hajime. So he used two judo words. But, let's remember that this interview took place on the 1st of March 2012, 1 year ago. just 1 year ago. Now, the reality is that in the last 1 year, did anything happen between Japan and Russia? No. No. My personal view is that it is it is close to criminality. It is nearly criminal that the Japanese side has not acted in the last year. Why? Because it is Japan which is asking very seriously to change the status quo. In Russia, majority of the Russians do not want to see that change of status quo on the islands. There's no reason for them because the border is fixated based on the victory of World War II. And President Putin is the most sort of active person to have shown readiness to conduct negotiations. And if Japan takes the position of China, for instance, that we are going to change the status quo by force, then it's different. Then it's different. But the whole post-war period, and I think to this day, no Japanese politician, no Japanese bureaucrat consider regaining these islands by force. It is only through negotiations. And if you want to do it through negotiations, then you have to jump into the windows which is opened by the other side. 1 year not doing anything, close to criminal. But the interesting thing is that it does seem that this open window, this window is still open to this day. And probably there are two reasons. One is China. Because there is no other country in the whole world which has a real kind of gut understanding of what is China now. And this is Russia. Because Russia is bordering with China in its economically weakest part, which is Far East and eastern part of Siberia. So at least there are two policies emerging from there. Not to provoke China. And this is very serious policy. So latest Xi Jinping's visit to Moscow and the communique adopted by Putin and Xi Jinping, a very carefully written document, very interesting document. Not to siding with China, but not to provoking China. But another position, aligning with countries which surround China without provoking China. And it seems that Putin has chosen Japan as the first country with which he is seriously interested in strengthening relations. And for this, he is counting on Japan's economic strength and Japan's ability of purchase Russian natural gas. And the fact that Japan and Russia has not succeeded in demarcating the border. This is, at this point in time, it does seem that this is adding another factor for Putin to do something with Japan. Because for Russian president to have a stable border, agreed border, is one of the objectives which he surely would like to achieve. And there's only one country with which Russia has not demarcated its border yet, and this is Japan. So, one more reason is Abe. I am convinced that the Russian side basically have a fond memory of Abe, because three reasons. One is the friendship between Gorbachev and Father Abe. I leave the detail, but there's some real moving story about how Father Abe tried to contribute in developing Japan-Russia relations, and how he established personal relations with Gorbachev, and how he appeared in April 1991 when Gorbachev made his first visit to Japan. Abe was really toward the end of his life, and he came to the reception with a wheeling chair and saluted with Gorbachev. This became his last public performance. I mean, Father Abe's. And the son Abe, Prime Minister Abe, was his father throughout in this period. But the two things which happened during his first prime ministership, one is Abe's proposal at Haringendal G8 summit, his Japanese government proposal to strengthen, to enhance Japan Russia economic cooperation in Far East and eastern part of Siberia. This is precisely the area where Putin is looking for strengthened cooperation. And the third factor is that then Foreign Minister Aso spoke at that diet in December 2006 that he is seriously kind of expressed his interest on dividing the space into half solution, which was a kind of heresy in my days in the foreign ministry. You know, this idea was an interesting idea. First proposed by Professor Iwashita of Hokkaido University, but a Japanese foreign minister stating it at a parliamentary debate. I do not know whether Russia is prepared to go to this direction or not, but at least Russian leadership should have got a certain impression about Abe's flexibility. Now, so the negotiations are continuing, and so 21st of February, Mori, special representative of Abe, went to Moscow and apparently had a productive meeting. I really think that the atmosphere of the meeting was positive, and now Abe is to go to Moscow at the end of end of April. I do not expect anything substantial, particularly on the northern territories, could be agreed, because to my best knowledge, there's not enough preparation going on. Now, so in concluding my certain concern, as I said, Putin declared its position 1 year ago. In my sense, having worked in the foreign ministry, if Japanese government do not react in the course of 1 year, this window should be closed. And yet, at this point in time, it is not closed. So the two key questions: how long will it be? How long will it remain open? I don't know which you are feeling, but my feeling is probably for another year. By the end of this year, does the government, does Prime Minister Abe, does Foreign Ministry have this sense of urgency? If not, then but second, what could be the real solution which both Abe and Putin can say, this is a good hikiwake, on the basis of which neither side should appear as a loser? If Abe or his surrounding consider that this solution of 4 islands in a bunch is the solution, it will not work. It will not work. In a broad sort of figuratively speaking format, I think it could be loosely terminated as 2 plus alpha, something like that. But the last message I want to say is that this alpha, meaning how to resolve the Kunashiri Etorofu, about which there is no agreement at this point between Japan and Russia. This alpha, I am afraid to say, is shrinking by several reasons. When Japan and Russia had, in my view, the greatest opportunity of resolving this issue in 1991 to 1992, Russian side came up with an unprecedented, confidential, non-existing proposal, and Japan did not bite. 2001 at Irkutsk, we took 10 years to go back to the situation somewhat similar. And we reached a format on the basis of which we could continue and find this alpha. And Japan's negotiating position disintegrated. And last was this shocking event in 2009, which plunged our political relations into near nadir. November 2009. For 3 times, the Japanese side missed the opportunity or missed the opportunity of grasping a possible solution. Inevitably, alpha is becoming smaller. So Abe has to put up with loosely defined 2 plus alpha with a very small alpha. Will he have the gut? I don't know. But my understanding or my judgment of the international relations is that if Japan fails to grasp this opportunity, then the answer will be 0. And for the foreseeable futures, I'm not saying for eternity, but at least for foreseeable futures, this window of opportunity will not be open. And this, in my view, is a profound disadvantage for Japan to resolve this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Togo. Now the Q&A session. We receive questions from the press people. And 1 question at a time, please. And would you please raise your hand and wait for a microphone. Then give us your name and affiliation before you ask your question with the microphone. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Togo. Peter Kuyat, German Radio here. Over there. Thank you very much for your explanations. That was very interesting. Let's stick to Russia for a moment. Why is the Japanese foreign ministry not acting, as you mentioned, almost criminally not acting? I always waited for that. And there was the summit between Xi Jinping and Putin just a few days ago. And she mentioned that it's necessary to keep the post-war situation, and he stressed that regarding Russia and asked for Russia's help to keep the post-war situation. And I think this was also aimed regarding the northern territories. So do you think there's still the chance? Putin got the message, I think. Thank you very much.
The first question, no, I can't answer. I really don't understand. Well, one example, one explanation which I have to give, sadly. Not only related to this issue, but there's certain shortcomings or profound problems in present-day Japan. That there's such a strong reluctance for change. And I'm calling it 3 evils of the Heisei era. Zenrei Toshu, doing things exactly as past examples, or observing past examples, Zenrei Toshu, and bureaucracy, and the vested interest. It's very difficult to introduce some fundamental reforms because certain resistance from everywhere. So this could apply on foreign policy, and this could apply to our Russian policy. In addition, there is this very unfortunate event or incident which took place in me, in 2002. I was asked to leave the foreign ministry, and this was at least part of the reason was related to my policy towards Russia. And I really, by the time I was leaving the foreign ministry, or by the time I left to the Netherlands as ambassador, I really was convinced that on several points that there is no other way of resolving this issue, no other way of resolving this issue through negotiations and through talks. We should reach to a certain situation where Japanese officials and Russian officials stop sitting at the table on the two sides. We should sit in a round table and squeeze our brains together. What will be a solution which will be acceptable to both? Obviously, it was something in between maximum position of Russia, which is sort of 0, and maximum position of us, which is 4. We should find something in between, but only through this kind of squeezing brains together, this issue could be resolved. But, you know, some people took this approach, I think, dangerous. Because we should have a free ability of exchanging views, saying things which is not under instruction, certain personal risk. And I am convinced that the point we reached at Irkutsk really opened a possibility of resolving or entering into real negotiation for resolving in a half year to 1 year time. But then position disintegrated. Not only disintegrated, but I had to, myself and another, my close colleague Sato, I had to leave the foreign minister and he was arrested. So, you know, it's a dangerous area. So, I don't know whether this kind of thinking is affecting my colleagues in the foreign ministry. But should they stay immobile, I don't think I need to find out a reason. If they stay immobile, this is becomes so critical in letting this window close. Now Xi Jinping's visit and Putin's meeting, I read very carefully. Because I can't read Chinese, but I did read the communique in Russian. Interesting communique. And my overall impression is that communique was written under complete Russian pace. It was very clear that Xi Jinping wanted to reproduce something like communique produced, I think it was 2009, as I said, when the Japan-Russia relations were really getting its nadir. The two sides emphasize this fact you mentioned, that there should be a respect for post-war reality. In the communique, basically, I mean, there was one or two sort of bit tricky words, but only one or two, and pronounced in a very kind of very the word there, but formulated in a very innocuous manner. In addition, I found two or three portions very interesting. The emphasis on the United Nations Charter, but completely in a different context, with necessity of resolving the conflicts through peace, embodied in United Nations Charter. These 2 or 3 paragraphs of this kind. These paragraphs are really the paragraph which I wanted to introduce in Japan-China communique. So, my impression about one achievement they made, the economic cooperation, that is going to move. And this is exactly what, in a way, Putin needed. Not at the expense of Japan, but selling Russian natural gas to China. This is in the interest of both. So I think the visit was very meaningful. But in terms of this delicate political aspect, I think, how do you say, in terms of gauging whether the window of opportunity is open or not, there was nothing in this visit which hinted that window is severing.
Any other questions from the foreign press? Okay,
Süddeutsche Zeitung, Neidhardt, Germany. I have been listening to you about these topics for 15 years or 14 years, and it's very interesting to see your positions evolve, especially yes, especially toward Russia. Now, my question today. This statement, there's no territorial issue by first, I think, Foreign Minister Maehara. Do you think that was made out of stupidity or lack of knowledge, or was that on purpose to annoy China? And there was this agreement to shelve, obviously a non-written agreement to shelve Senkaku in the 70s. When we talk to the foreign ministry now, they say this is not true, but I think I have heard
what is not true?
That China and Japan agreed informally to shelve the topic. And I think I've heard that from you, that this has been done. Thank you.
I'm glad you raised this topic, because I think there is a necessity to set the record, I mean the chronology right. You see, China and Taiwan began to claim officially these islands in 1971, as we know. And then in 1972, Tanaka Zhou meeting. In 1978, Sonoda Deng Xiaoping meeting. Clearly, Zhou and I said that let's not talk about this issue now. And Deng Xiaoping said that let's leave the resolution of this issue to the wisdom of the future generations. No, the words may not be exact, but something like that. And clearly, there was nothing indicates that Japanese side said no. So this so-called Tanage quote agreement unquote, I think the best wording to characterize them is Ammoku no Ryokai, tacit understanding. Tacit understanding. This wording, tacit understanding, expression is used by Kuriyama, former vice minister, in Asahi Shimbun on October the 31st last year. I entirely share this understanding. So to say that nothing happened these days, wrong. But things began to change. By whom? By China, at least 3 times. 1992, China included Senkaku in their official law into the territorial area. And it does seem that the Japanese government, the foreign ministry, particularly legal department, became very concerned about it. And in response to this China's inclusion of Senkaku into the territorial waters, the first sign in Japan emerged to argue that this Tanage agreement is finished. You know, they took this position to destroy the agreement, so it will not be anymore. But it was said in a very, it seems that it has been said. It seems. But no, while I was in the foreign ministry, I did not face it. But after I left, I mean, and quite recently, I was reminded by this NBR debate that Prime Minister Miyazawa referred to this tacit agreement, and the foreign ministry said, no, wait a minute. That we are now in a very different situation, that China included this into the territorial waters. And so things may be changing. But it's been, and China said that, well, no, things are the same. But as early as this, you can trace in newspapers. In April 1996, the first, this is the first that I could trace. In April 1996, Japanese government began to say in our fishery talks that there is no 日中間に解決すべき領土問題ない。There is no territorial issues between Japan and China which need resolution. It is not Maehara. It is in April 1996 by the foreign ministry, in conjunction with the fishery talks, when we began to say this. But still, it was general mood was good between Japan and China, and so both sides did not politicize this issue. But let us not make mistakes. The first change of approach began with China in 1992, and the Japanese side reacted very. Our lawyers took this very seriously, but still politically it was subdued. But second action, now this I personally feel because in December 2008, Chinese boat went into the Senkaku arena and stayed there for 12 hours. And after this, there was an official press conference by China's fishery agency, proclaiming for the first time, I think, in history, that this is our territory and we need to accumulate concrete example of effective control. It was a small article. In my view, it could be a headline article, but in Japanese newspaper, it was a tiny article. But I nearly fell off my chair. This is unthinkable, because as I said, I have no discomfort in sort of appreciating China's position to consider the islands is theirs. It is their view. Let it be spoken. Let it be negotiated. But changing the status quo, accumulating examples meaning is doing with physical force. This means war. That was my impression. And then 2010, and Maehara began to say very politically eloquent manner, no territorial issues, as a reaction of 2010. I mean, so that everybody knows. But that position, basic position, originates from the 1990s. And the third is this China's position of actually starting implementing policy which they have declared in December 2008. This is what is happening. Disagree? we can talk, but I think this chronology is very important. But as I said, this does not justify Japan's continuous statement that territorial issue does not exist. This chronology, in my personal view, does not justify that Japan's position, because this is dangerous.
I don't want to disagree, and I don't want to have a symposium, but I wanted to say, you always stressed that there was an urge, and with your predictions, a strong. It was very urgent to solve these problems, and your predictions actually became true step by step. So I mean, you were really right on spot with your predictions that it would get to where we are now in the Senkaku.
But what should we do?
No, that's your problem.
Okay, next question.
Yes, it is our problem. Agree.
Okay.
My name is Kosuke Takahashi, Tokyo correspondent of Jane's Defense Weekly. My question is about Senkaku Islands. Chinese leader Xi Jinping, I think, using Senkaku Island to enhance nationalism, because China is having a very domestic big problem, right? So it's not easy to solve this, because any territorial dispute is directly linked to the domestic problem. And also, Xi Jinping is, I heard, has a vested interest in ocean, because he has worked in sea coast of China, like Hokkien province, like nearly 20 years. So he will not compromise any ocean interest. Is that the correct view? What do you think? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. But I rather prefer to refrain from the domestic causes for China to take this policy. It may be so, it may not be so, but I'm not real China expert. Some of the sort of impression I have got, but I think I'm not authoritative enough to brief this. But whatever the reasons, whatever the domestic reasons, yeah, every country, every leader has some domestic reasons, I agree. But this is no reason to take an action which, in my view, goes close to the violation of the United Nations Charter. And if you do it, then you get some consequences. And as a leader of great China, things have to be balanced, domestic aspect and international aspect. And at this point in time, because China is implementing everything which they declared to implement 4 years ago, it seems that they are on a victor side. But in the long run, is it really so? This is the thing which I hope that a Chinese leader will give some thought. But after that, I am no Chinese leader, so I don't know how things would develop this year.
Okay. I'm afraid the time is running. So this may be the last question.
Siegfried Niedl, freelancer from Germany. How do you assess the interview Prime Minister Abe gave the Washington Times when he went to United States?
Washington Post.
Yes, in the Washington Post. Yes, not in Times. Yes.
This opens. Wait a minute. That interview. I see. I didn't like it very much. You see, Abe went into analyzing China's. Yeah, exactly. I like that question. I refrained. He did not refrain. Abe went into analyzing China's domestic situation. Let scholars knowledgeable about China do it, not Prime Minister. It is some of the points he said may be right, but if a Prime Minister of another country gives this kind of analysis, it is offending. It is humiliating. This is not the wisest. Let me be a little more. This is a bad approach as a Prime Minister. And so China's reaction was very harsh. On the other hand, I think the political position he took in Washington was much better. As I said, emphasizing to Obama our firm resilience, for determination for deterrence, but sending a message. I think, I don't know in real time what he talked with Obama, at least, but publicly sending a message to China and elsewhere that his window for dialogue is open. This is exactly what he should have said. So I wish the interview would not have taken place.
Okay, the time is up. Sorry, we should close the session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.